Well, another FIFA World Cup has come and gone, and though I've never really been much of a soccer fan, I have been thoroughly enjoying the 2026 edition. And I'm very surprised by how much I've been enjoying it. See, growing up, I've always loved sports. Always. At least most of them anyway. I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri. And see, in St. Louis, that city is known for being a sports city. Baseball is pretty much the king around there. And I got one hell of an introduction to it in 1998 when I was 8 years old during the Home Run Derby. Mark McGwire breaking the single season home run record in my own hometown in a stadium that was only 15 miles away from my house. That was always something that was very special to me. And I know that that particular part of baseball isn't remembered too terribly fondly these days, but it helped me become the fan that I am today. Hockey was a big deal in St. Louis even before the St. Louis Blues arrived, and with Al McInnes and Chris Pronger at the time, how could I not love that? Um, Football was pretty easy, like gridiron football. The Rams were at the height of the greatest show on turf era, and my dad was a huge Browns fan. He grew up in Youngstown, Ohio, so I was probably going to be a football fan anyway. He also introduced boxing to me, which I still love to this day. I was a basketball fan through the tail end of the Jordan era, and having several college basketball teams in my immediate surroundings. A lot of people don't consider professional wrestling a sport, but well, I've always loved it, and I still love it to this day. My point is, I have had a lot of interests and passions over the years, but sports have always been among them. Even though St. Louis is a soccer hotbed, soccer has always been the exception for me. I grew up hearing about the Arena League, St. Louis Ambush, and St. Louis Steamers, college soccer with the Billikens, high school soccer, you name it. Busch Stadium and the Edward Jones Dome, or the Dome at America's Center as it's now called, have hosted international friendlies. The U.S. team that beat England in 1950 had 5 players from St. Louis. And the United States team that won silver at the 1904 Olympics was literally a college team from St. Louis. But despite all of this, soccer has just always eluded me. I think it's because I already like too many other sports and my hometown didn't really have a major league team, which unfortunately was also a major factor in me losing interest in basketball after the Jordan era, and I wouldn't pick it up until the late 2000s. But recent events have put soccer more on my radar, starting with the establishment of St. Louis City SC. The city of St. Louis had been screaming for an MLS team for years, and they finally got it in 2019, and they finally got around to playing in like 2022, I think it was. Right around that same time, the 2022 World Cup was taking place, and I didn't indulge in it like I did with the 2026 version, but I kind of poked my head in just to, see what all the fuss was about, but nothing really stuck out. I thought it was kind of cool, but nothing really, jumped out at me, right? Well, I don't know what it was about the 2026 tournament, but something definitely stuck this time. I don't know what it was, though. It was just a lot of fun. I can completely understand why so many people around the world love this sport. I'm still not entirely clear on a lot of the rules, outside of maybe most of the basics, and even some of the basics I still don't get. But I'm starting to see why this game is so beloved around the world. And I have a little more motivation to follow my hometown team again. Or at least I did until ownership decided to ban Black Lives Matter flags and banners and transgender pride flags. Not rainbow pride flags or any other thing like that, just trans flags. Do these people have any idea who MLS fans are? I know not much about soccer, but what I can tell you is that soccer fans, especially in America, MLS fans, are possibly the most progressive fan base of any major American sports league, with the possible exception of the WNBA. Now, this came on the heels of some guy getting drunk and belligerent at Energizer Park last year, and he got kicked out for it, claiming that it was because of his Donald Trump hat, which was total bullshit because anybody wearing anything would have got kicked out if they acted like he did. But he wanted to make a scene, he wanted to prove a point, and he got exactly what he wanted, and the rest of us are getting punished for it. This decision was made literally the day after the team introduced the jersey in honor of Tina Turner, a St. Louis area black woman who was an outspoken member of the LGBT community. They announced they were banning Black Lives Matter slogans and trans pride flags, making money off of her name and likeness, but dishonoring her by banning Black Lives Matter paraphernalia. That's not honor, that's exploitation. And trans flags are they're still okay on Pride Night, and Black Lives Matter flags are okay during Black History Month, but Here's the thing: you cannot have values on only like 1 or 2 days out of the year, or if there's like merchandise to sell. You just can't do that. You have to live those values. If you're going to say you have those values, you have to prove it. And St. Louis City SC ownership has completely failed to live by them. Do you know how many soccer fandoms were built on the backs of minorities? And ownership wants to spit in their face just so they can spit on the cocks of conservatives who never really cared about soccer in the first place. So until we see some kind of change up top in City SC leadership, I can't throw my support behind that team anymore. I mean, I'm going to be happy for them if they win, obviously, but I can't. I'm not going to spend my money on them. I'm going to be happy for them, and I hope that the St. Louis area fans, enjoy the soccer they've been seeing. But I just can't, morally support that team. I was going to buy a jersey secondhand from them from eBay, but honestly, I don't even feel right doing that. And it's not like I can just pick another MLS team. I don't live in St. Louis anymore, but my next closest teams are FC Cincinnati and the Columbus Crew, who neither of which I have any connection to whatsoever. And also, City SC no longer employs Lucas Dimitra, the son of St. Louis Blues legend Pavel Dimitra. So I'm feeling very indifferent at best to City SC. So what are my options? What do I do? Well, the indoor St. Louis ambush still exists. I mean, there's also, college soccer with St. Louis University and SIUE having a pretty damn decent and deep soccer-specific rivalry. So I was mulling this over, and then it dawned on me. The English Premier League is pretty popular with American soccer fans these days, and with the raging success of the World Cup, you just know that popularity is only going to grow. There's a lot of American players who play on Premier League teams, not to mention, fan favorites worldwide like Erling Haaland, who I got to say I became a very big fan of during the course of this World Cup. Not to mention, some Premier League teams are owned by owners of American sports teams. Like, for example, Liverpool is owned by the owners of the Boston Red Sox. Arsenal FC is owned by the owner of the Los Angeles Rams, which, now that I think about it, I think that just narrowed my list down to one, because fuck Stan Kroenke. I can't believe I just said his name. Hold on a sec. I'm going to wash my mouth out for that. Anyway, with my newfound interest in soccer and the end of the World Cup, which was the biggest catalyst, it only makes sense to me to continue with the Premier League. It's only the most popular soccer league in the world, with fan clubs and support coming from all over the US and all over the world. But the question is, how do I decide on a team to cheer for? I can't just hand pick one. I mean, if I'm going to pick a team, I need a reason to stay with them. And picking a team from a country that I've never even been to is not going to be easy, so I need to narrow it down. So what I did here was I compiled a table of teams, and I highlighted things about them that, stand out to me. The morality of ownership, the morality of the fan base, individual players, history, community involvement, who has something to lose, who has something to prove, human interest stuff that can just really keep me interested years down the road. Because if I'm going to commit to a team, I cannot half-ass it, so let me see what I can come up with. So, if you don't know something, what do? What's the first thing you do? Google it, as we like to say. Google suggests that individual players is a common way of deciding on a team, which is a concept that is not entirely foreign to me. I became a fan of the WNBA side Atlanta Dream in 2009 because of one player, Shamika Holtzclaw, and I have been a loyal fan ever since. She only played for that team 1 year that I was cheering for them, but the talent that she was surrounded by just, it really reignited my love for basketball. And I have been with that team ever since. So let's take a look at some individual players that really stuck out to me during the World Cup. Erling Haaland is first on the list, who plays for Man City. I also really appreciated how Emiliano Martinez played during the final versus Spain, the Argentine goalie. The dude came in that game with an already injured hand and blocked like infinity shots. He plays for Aston Villa, so that's something that I can definitely earmark. Unfortunately, that's kind of all who stuck out to me. I know there was just so many more players. I mean, obviously, Lionel Messi, obvious exception is obvious, all right? But as far as other players, unfortunately, I didn't get to see every single game, but I'm sure others will appear on my radar soon enough, especially as I, kind of sink my teeth a little bit deeper into the world of soccer. Another deciding factor for American fans is ownership, as I've mentioned before. Now, my St. Louis Blues and St. Louis Cardinals don't own any British soccer teams. However, Fulham FC is owned by Shahid Khan, who owns the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, I am not a Jacksonville Jaguars. I am, however, an AEW fan. Yeah, that's much better. Now, Shahid Khan is the lead investor of AEW, and his son Tony is the CEO and lead booker. And Tony has also been a strategy officer for Fulham, and he actually made AEW a sponsor of the team. And on their women's team, they actually wear the AEW logo on the front of their jerseys. Why the men's team don't do that, I have no idea, or at least have the AEW logo on like a sleeve or something. I mean, I don't know. I think that would be pretty cool, but it's not my decision to make. But whatever, the Khans own Fulham, which gives them one hell of an advantage over Man City and Aston Villa. Next on the list is going to be club culture. We're talking community involvement, human rights, the morality of the ownership, the things that I've already mentioned before. Since Tony Khan is a progressive person, you know that Fulham is not about to tolerate racism or sexism or anything stupid like that, so I really don't need to look too far there. But apparently, all 20 Premier League teams also have LGBT supporters groups and actively participated in the campaign called Premier League with Pride, which aims to combat homophobia and foster inclusive match days. Okay, that is already way more progressive than the NHL's You Can Play campaign, which was really cool at first. I really, really appreciated the work that they did until the NHL decided to ban Pride tape on hockey sticks, and it was defied by, one player, two players. I mean, outside of Curtis Gabriel, I don't remember who the other player was, so if anybody remembers, comment, or I can just look it up when I'm editing it. Not to mention canceling Pride nights and, jersey auctions and just Pride shit in general, because a couple of Christian players were just too chicken shit to wear a little bit of color during warm-ups. So, let's narrow it down. Arsenal has the UK's first and world's largest LGBT football fan group. The team directly collaborates with that group to tackle discrimination and host inclusion training for the staff, which is absolutely amazing. I love that already. But as I mentioned before, Arsenal is owned by he who shall not be named, so they're out. But still, nevertheless, I have mad respect to the team for doing just that. Up next is Brighton. They are seen as something of an LGBT capital of the UK, and their Proud Seagulls fan group is pretty active in the community. The LGBT fan group for Leeds United is apparently so prominent it's actually mentioned in the team's Wikipedia article. The team released a statement after one game calling out fans, which they put in air quotes for extra emphasis, for starting homophobic chants at a game and promising actions will be taken, insisting that it's not banter, don't join in. Because it's true. They also have a supporters group for fans of the Sikh faith and disabled fans. Well, damn, Leeds is giving Fulham some competition here. Manchester United has a website link where you can learn how to report discrimination, and they call their group the Rainbow Devils. That is an absolute power move. St. Louis City SC ownership would never survive in this kind of environment, and I am here for that. Okay, this has all been pretty damn enlightening. The Premier League is already way ahead of the NHL with, they're bending the knee to a few loudmouth dissenters, and Major League Baseball with their total unwillingness to piss off Donald Trump fans by even mentioning why Jackie Robinson was so important to remember in the first place. Not to mention the NFL for removing the "end racism" quote from the end zones for the Super Bowl that one year. And it's not just LGBT support either. No room for racism is a pretty upfront policy, with sanctions in place for anybody violating the league's anti-discrimination policies, which have apparently been activated 4,000 times since 2020. Here's an article I found from 2023 about a man who was literally arrested for 6 months for making racist gestures at a player, as well as a 7-year ban from all Premier League games. That is absolutely amazing. I'm almost mad at myself for not being a soccer fan sooner, especially the Premier League. This is exactly the kind of leadership and accountability that is missing in American sports leagues, with a slight exception for MLS and the WNBA. Okay, I'm a Premier League fan. I'm a fan. I'm sold. I still don't have a team though, but at least I've narrowed it down to at least a few. And even though I don't have an official team just yet, I really, really cannot wait for the season to start next month. Not just for supporting a progressive league that doesn't tolerate racism, sexism, or homophobia, but for continuing what I started to do when I decided to sink my teeth into the World Cup. Now, I may not have an English team, But while I was poking around the internet for information that I would need to make this very video, I came across a Reddit post outlining the most progressive teams in the world, and I discovered a German team, FC St. Pauli, that apparently tops the list in every conceivable way. So in the 70s and 80s, as one team in Hamburg was getting a little bit too comfortable with right wingers, the other team in Hamburg, St. Pauli, became something of a refuge point for the city's liberal population and has remained that way ever since. SC St. Pauli operates under something of a democratic, member-driven structure, and its fans are allowed to vote on team decisions, in addition to all the political and social causes they already engage in. This team put out a blanket ban on neo-Nazis to the stadium. They made anti-fascism, anti-racism, anti-sexism, anti-homophobia official core tenets of the team. They housed refugees in the stadium and offered legal assistance during the European refugee crisis. And they organized and hosted a World Cup-like tournament for countries not represented by FIFA. And not to mention, fans overwhelmingly rejected selling the stadium's naming rights to corporations, even though it would have made the team a shitload of money. They rejected Maxim magazine as a team sponsor because they didn't like the way they depicted women. They sell merchandise with slogans and images rejecting fascism, Nazism, racism, homophobia, all that fun stuff. You name it. I mean, look at this. Could you imagine an MLS team selling that on their official merch store or on Fanatics? The uproar on social media would be absolutely unreal. But FC St. Pauli just does it. And they do it proudly with a smile on their face. I'm a fan. I'm an SC St. Pauli fan. Or FC, my bad. Freudian slip. I'm American. Forgive me. I don't have a Premier League team, but I definitely have a Bundesliga team. Well, a second-tier Bundesliga, but whatever. They could get promoted to the top flight. I mean, they have before. There's no reason to believe they can't do it again. Well, probably. I've also noticed while I was reading up on this team that some people, especially their crosstown rivals, they kind of pick on the team and their fans for caring more about political slogans than soccer. Which, okay, for some fans, I guess I can kind of understand that. Maybe that is true for some people. It's definitely an appeal. It's an appeal for me for sure. But when I step back and I look at the bigger picture and I see the community involvement, the commitment to the values that they've been promoting for decades, it's not performative. They talk a big game, but they back it up. It's a far cry from St. Louis City SC. I mean, does it come at great expense to the team? Sometimes. But, they recognize that some things are bigger than soccer, and they absolutely live with it. They know exactly who they are, they know what they believe in, and they don't apologize for it. They stand by their principles, no matter what the cost is. That means something. So the Premier League, whichever team I end up deciding on, if I do, the German side, FC St. Pauli, additional international, intercontinental tournaments, there's college soccer. The possibilities are endless. And there's always something happening in this sport. I just can't believe it took me so long to finally realize the appeal of it. I used to actively, dislike it and talk about how much it sucked, but, well, hey, learn from your mistakes, I guess, right? If you made it this far, well, I thank you for tolerating my rambling or getting pissed off at it. That's like half of the appeal of this channel anyway. And the next time I have something to say that might make you mad or happy, I'll see you then.